Hello people, welcome to sqadia.com. Today the topic of my presentation is gut tube and body cavities. The subsection is tube on a tube. We'll see in a minute why we call it that. So in this section we'll be talking about neurulation, the formation of gut tube and the splitting of intraembryonic mesoderm. Okay, so first of all, the process of neurulation. It begins during the 3rd and 4th weeks of intrauterine life. Embryo is at the trilaminar stage. Now look at the figure. In the section A, you can see this is the trilaminar disc stage in which there are 3 layers in embryo. The upper layer is known as ectoderm, the middle layer is known as mesoderm, and the lower layer is known as endoderm. Now, what happens is the ectoderm, the uppermost layer, now starts to form the neural tube. These are the precursors of the neural crest cells. They form the neural plate. The neural plate tends to roll up, and the rolling up of the neural plate leads to the formation of neural tube. It is very evident in the figure. The details of neurulation will be taken up by some other lecture. However, it is a very important process and you must keep that in mind. Neurulation is the process of formation of the neural tube. It occurs rather during 3rd and 4th week. The embryo is initially at the at trilaminar disc stage. Now, the ectoderm initially forms the neural plate, which rolls up to form the neural tube. The neural tube in the future will give rise to brain and the spinal cord. Now, how does the gut tube form? It also occurs at the same time, that is during 3rd to 4th weeks. It takes place simultaneously with neurulation, as I've told you before. Ventrally, now the dorsal and ventral orientation of embryo is very important. I'll try to explain that on my hand. This is the ventral portion. This is the dorsal portion. You have to keep that in mind while studying embryology. The orientation of embryo is very important. Now we're talking about the ventral endoderm that rolls down to form the gut tube. In the figure, the layer in the yellow color is the endoderm that is folding down to form the gut tube. Now the neural tube lies dorsally. On the dorsal surface we have the neural tube in light blue, and ventrally we have the gut tube in yellow. Now this structure is known as tube upon a tube. In between we have mesoderm, this in pink. This is the mesodermal layer which is holding the 2 tubes together. This structure is known as tube upon a tube, hence the name of this section. Now let's talk about the splitting of the intraembryonic mesoderm. So intraembryonic mesoderm here, this is the mesodermal layer in red. It splits into paraxial mesoderm. This is the paraxial mesoderm. Then we have the intermediate mesoderm. And then we have the lateral plate mesoderm. We'll talk about paraxial mesoderm first. Paraxial mesoderm divides into somites and somitomeres. Somites and somitomeres give rise to skeletal and muscular and skin. Skeletal elements, muscular elements, and skin. Now we have intermediate mesoderm. Intermediate mesoderm forms the urogenital system. And then we have the lateral plate mesoderm. Lateral plate mesoderm splits into further parts which will be taken up in a little detail in a while, and it forms the body cavity, the adult body cavity, initially the embryonic body cavity and the adult body cavity. So the important thing is the division of the intraembryonic mesoderm. Intraembryonic mesoderm, it's this middle layer of the trilaminar disc stage. The middle layer splits into 3 further parts. The first part is paraxial mesoderm. The paraxial mesoderm divides into somites and somitomeres. The somites and somitomeres form skeletal elements, muscular elements, and the skin. Now we have the intermediate mesoderm. Intermediate mesoderm helps in the formation of the urogenital system. Lastly, we have the lateral plate mesoderm. Lateral plate mesoderm splits up further and forms the body cavity, initially embryonic and then adult. So this is the end of the first section of this presentation. I hope I have made this easier for you. It's a very simple but a very, very important concept. So it started with the process of neurulation, which was the formation of neural tube. It began during 3rd to 4th week of development. Side by side, the gut tube was being formed. Dorsally, we had the neural tube. Ventrally, we had the gut tube. 2 tubes were placed upon each other with mesoderm in between, holding them together. This was the reason for calling this section tube upon a tube. Then we saw how does the mesoderm divide. It divides into 3 layers. 3 layers were parietal mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, and lateral plate mesoderm. The parietal mesoderm gave rise to somites and somitomeres, which forms the skeletal elements, the cartilaginous elements, the bony elements, the muscles and skin. Then we have intermediate mesoderm, which forms the urogenital system. And lastly, we have the lateral plate mesoderm, which splits up further and forms initially embryonic and then adult body cavity. For further details upon this lecture, keep watching sqadia.com.